I'm really, really excited to be bringing you some fabulous leaders. We're going to have candid conversations. We're going to learn from their experience and hopefully get some really valuable morsels out of this series. So the reason why I've put this together is I have been in the industry for 20 years. I've been working with fabulous people. I've met some extraordinary leaders. I've helped build some extraordinary teams, and I really wanted to bring some of the knowledge and experience that I have come across to as many people as possible. So I've chosen LinkedIn Live to do this. I hope this forum works for everybody, and I will be here at 11:30 every Thursday until I run out of leaders to talk to, and I hope it's helpful for you. I've just put together this very short video to launch us each week so that people can see us go live, they can jump on board, and they know we're here. So bear with me, we will be going live at 11:30 as promised. So why is this important? This is important because it's to be good at what you do. It's really important to model good people. So if you want to be the best, model the best. And I have worked with so many wonderful leaders and helped them build teams. I've seen some really fabulous leadership styles. I've seen people who've developed over time as leaders, and the fastest way to do that is to, yes, there's theory, but let's move away from theory a little bit and let's look at what really happens in these roles for these people, and let's learn from the mistakes that some of the leaders have made. So I suppose I'm bringing mentors to the table through the experience that I have and the people who I have met over the years. So hopefully it's inspiring to you. Hopefully it's a place where you will gain some valuable information. Even if you pick up one thing from the conversation we're having each week, then that will be enough for me to feel as if I've brought you value. So I really do hope that you receive value from this. What I would love from you is if you can let us know you're here. Obviously we're live on LinkedIn. We would love interaction from you to know that you're here, you're listening. Let us know if there's something that comes up for you that resonates with you, something that you want to ask. The aim will be 20 minutes of conversation and then 5 to 10 minutes of Q&A, depending on how we end up. So hopefully that works for you all. As I say, please interact with us, engage. And if you would like a transcript of this session, I'm going to share transcripts with people who come to me and ask for them, and I will also put together a document which will be all of the key takeouts, the key learnings that we've received from each session. So I'll also be able to share that with you if you pop a comment in at the end of the conversation. So really excited to be here once again. Let's get on with it. I will see you on the other side. Can you hear me? Fiona, can you hear me?
I can.
Yep.
You're a bit quiet.
Hello to everybody on LinkedIn. I'm so sorry, just some technical difficulties. We will be with you in just a moment. Now I'm just checking, can I hear you, Fiona?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can't for some reason. Oh, gosh.
I can hear you.
Okay, can I... Speakers. Can I... Oh. Okay, now I think, can I hear you now? Yes,
Hopefully,
wonderful.
yes, great. Okay,
Yep,
good.
wonderful.
All right. Okay.
All right. Hi, LinkedIn. We are so sorry. Hopefully we've, I think people have possibly... Yay, I've got some people on. All right. Sorry, guys. Just some thank you to the NBN service in my area this week. I apologise for that. And we are on live. So welcome to Fiona. I'm going to just, sorry, just trying to get a couple of things technically sorted. I am on hotspot, so I'm hoping that this survives, and I'm on laptop. So anyway, sorry, here we go. So welcome to Fiona Boyd. I'm just going to jump into a very quick introduction on Fiona. So Fiona's has executive experience at C-level. She's a C-level executive and director in technology, marketing, financial and professional services across Australia, Asia, Europe, and the US. Well, that's where she's had experience. She's held leadership roles for major companies and some startup companies across a diverse group of industries and markets, and actively involved as a board member in various companies and startups as well. Again, another very busy leader to speak with us today. Fiona's also led joint ventures, acquisitions, integration programs in various capacities, and as well as her MBA by experience. She holds an MBA, a global executive MBA from the Sydney University. Currently, Fiona is the CEO and MD of ipscape, which is an Australian cloud-based customer experience technology company, enabling software as a service solutions for a variety of sectors. And she plays an active role as a mentor for women in fintech, and is a huge advocate for diversity in the workplace. So welcome, Fiona.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Lovely to have you here. I appreciate you taking time out to talk to us. I'm hearing a bit of an echo on this on the system here, so I'm hoping that that is not causing any challenges.
I'm not hearing that. So yeah,
wonderful. I'm just going to turn off the sound on my other. Sorry, everybody. Okay, good. All right. This is the first go on the laptop. So wonderful. Please let us know if you are here. Hi, Pat. Hi, Michael. I hope you are all still here. We've had some little glitches. And Fiona, I'd love you to tell us first, what got you into leadership? Did you find leadership, or did leadership find you?
It was probably more the latter. So although if I think back, I'm the second oldest, or the oldest girl of 7 kids. And I think if I sort of go back to my early days, I was always pretty independent. There wasn't a lot of money, so whatever money I needed to buy the latest pair of jeans, I needed to find that myself. So I did sort of set up some early ventures, a babysitting agency and a couple of others. So I guess that and a combination of sort of looking after younger siblings, maybe it primed me for leadership later on. Who knows?
Yeah, entrepreneurial childhood.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so when was how did you transition into leadership in your career? What was sort of the pivot point for you there?
So I guess if I go back to after uni, I started with actually at the time it was Anderson Consulting, which became Accenture, and that in those days was probably one of the early sort of technology systems integration companies. And I didn't really know a lot about technology at that point. In fact, up to that point, I was either going to be a journalist or a lawyer. But I got involved in the technology sector at a really pivotal time. It was going through massive change. And from there, I went into a series of different roles, different companies. And I guess in terms of leadership, it was more about whatever was happening at the time, whether it was, developing new products or developing a business. It tended to be something where, probably I was sort of sought out by other people or other leaders to lead that particular function. I guess it was sort of more, as I said, something that chose me.
Yeah. Okay. And so when you did transition into leadership, because often, it can be a little bit of a shock to the system as well when you realize how different it is to
Yeah.
individual contributor type roles.
Yes. Yeah.
Did you have mentors around you? Were there people who were sort of pivotal for you as you made that transition?
Any mentors, did you say?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I mean, there were some really good people initially that I worked with, and then throughout my career, I've had the opportunity to work with some really good people. I mean, I think the other thing about mentorship that I would, or in my experience, it hasn't always been a formal mentoring program per se. I mean, I think there's plenty of learning opportunities and coachable moments, I guess, that we all go through. Um, and yeah, in fact, probably as much as anything, there's been some sort of uncomfortable, coachable moments that have equally afforded those mentoring opportunities. But yeah, I would say that the mentors that I had, either in terms of direct leaders or people I worked with or people who worked with me, there was always, I think, the opportunity to learn from any of those individuals.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. And then you became the mentor, or you sort of moved into that.
Yeah,
I'd love to talk to you about, I know when we've been talking, we've sort of touched on um, diversity, and we've touched on various things, but what are sort of the key elements that you have found have been really important in building your teams over time and creating success?
yeah. I think, for me, what has been important is to uh, find or develop a team of people that share the same vision and purpose, and that want to be part of whatever you're trying to develop. And so, creating that real that sense of opportunity and potential change for people, and people being part of that. And I think we all come to work, we spend however many hours a day here. I do believe that most people want to have that sense of purpose in what they do, and it's about sort of tapping into and finding what motivates a particular individual. And I've always found that if you can get a team of people, and no matter how disengaged they may be, but if you can really create that really compelling vision and what you want to achieve, and obviously not everyone's going to be on the same sort of boat, but it's about really finding the like-minded people that want to go on that journey with you.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, I mean, engagement is absolutely crucial. And I think, like you say, it's got to be an individual approach as opposed to just a one size fits all. And I think that's where, you hear the feedback that people join cultures or they join companies and they leave leaders. And
Yes.
so unless you've got a really strong connection with each individual, then they're not going to get you're not going to get the best out of them. And it's
Absolutely.
expensive as well when you're turning over staff, or you've got the disengagement. So
Yes.
what have been some of the, I mean, have you had challenges over, I know when you joined ipscape, it was, there was changes and growth that needed to happen in there. Can you
Yeah.
talk us through some of the things that you've learnt over the time that have sort of worked or not worked?
Sure. So, I mean, when I started here probably 2.5 years ago, the company is probably what you call an established startup. So it is backed by a couple of bigger uh, investors, so Telstra Ventures being one of them. But I think what had happened over the years, and perhaps it was sort of expectation misalignment or whatever it might have been, but the company had gone through a pretty sort of tumultuous, turnover of both leaders and people. So I think each CEO that had been with the company before me had stayed for only a very short period of time. When I started, the original founders of the company had sort of moved on. And so there was a team of people who had stayed at development team and technology staff, etc. But there was a lot of, I think, probably disengagement and cynicism, I'd have to say, with what had gone on in the past. And I think there was probably initially when I came on board, there was sort of a sense of, oh well, how long is she going to last for?
Right.
And there was you could sort of feel and see that there was just this really disengagement throughout the team. There was a lot of turnover, so a lot of staff had left and were leaving. There was a lot of client dissatisfaction. There was quite a big churn rate in terms of customers. Revenues were declining, and the company wasn't meeting the expectations of the shareholders, or staff or clients. So there was quite a big job to do in terms of turning all that around.
Wow. And because I think some leaders would come in and start looking at the bottom line, looking at the numbers, looking at the spreadsheets, and whereas you seem to focus more on the people element and what needs to happen there. I mean, obviously everything's important, but
Yes.
the people piece is really key.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think, what I could see pretty much straight up was there was some really good talent in the team, particularly in sort of the technology area. We'd had, a really good, loyal team of developers and tech people who'd been with the company, who'd seen sort of, these different iterations and changes, but who probably lacked the confidence or felt they didn't have the support in terms of what they needed to do. And so as a result, I think previous more short-term sort of decision making had led them down a path where they needed to be able to move forwards, and they had all these ideas, but they didn't have a forum in which they could be heard. And so the first thing to do was, and in fact, I think in my first week, I actually sent out a note to everyone in the team and asked them to give me feedback about what they felt, was good, what was bad, what needed to change in the company. And I got some really great feedback from individuals who also said, oh, it's the first time we've been asked. So it was a really good, I think, initial sort of discovery exercise. And it was, as you say, all about talking to people and finding out from their perspective what they felt was actually happening. So yeah, it was, and I always believe that if you focus on the fundamentals and, people is the absolute, key part of that. The other thing is clients and customers, and you need to find out what is actually happening from their perspective. So I spent, a lot of time in the initial phases to really understand what was going on. And I could see that there were probably a few fundamental issues that needed to be addressed. Obviously the team, the engagement, our client engagement, our product strategy and evolution, and all of the things that go into that as well, market fit, etc. And so we sort of set out a transformation program and program of change. And one of the first things I did was to try and really sort of identify where were the existing leaders, where were the future leaders of the group, and try to develop a much stronger management team. Previously, it had been probably more of a command and control sort of environment. So there was the CEO and perhaps, one, maybe two others, but not a really strong sort of sense of, a team being equipped to sort of actually help drive the change that the company needed.
Yeah, amazing. And so there's so many challenges there. And I always say on these calls, I could go down different rabbit holes and be here for days talking about the different things. I know something you've mentioned to me and we've talked about is diversity. And, you talk about diversity in a much broader way than just looking at equality or, so how important has that been in your transformation and getting to where you are now?
Yeah, I mean, it's been critical. And as you say, I have spent quite a lot of time, obviously, with women and diversity. But I also believe that equally as important to have diversity of culture, diversity of thought, diversity of opinion. And so we actually have a great team here. We have a team with, multiple. In fact, I think at one point we did a check or poll check to find out, of the team that we had, there were something like 38 different countries represented and multiple, first languages. And in our management team now, we have sort of pretty much equally weighted women and men, and who come from sort of all parts of the globe. And our head of development who's from Brazil, and our head of program management who's from India, and so we have a really great, really good team of people with that sort of diversity of thought, and also diversity of personality, I think, is the other thing that's really important. We're not all the same type of person, and you actually need different people, different perspectives that come from their sort of life experience or their personality to actually make a really good, strong team. So, yeah.
Absolutely. There's so many times I've walked into teams and seen just lots and lots of mini-me's. So all the people, or clones, I should say, similar people working together, and everybody's happy because they all get along really well, but doesn't necessarily get the right outcomes or results or allow real innovation as much.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And can you pinpoint any examples of where that's really played out well for you, and it's been, having that diversity in there has really made a difference?
I mean, well, one sort of small example, but the technology team and people on the call who are part of that community will know this well, but we have regular hackathons. And so the developers love this because they get to have the opportunity to down tools and, sort of have a couple of days where they just focus on sort of pet projects and what they want to put forward as innovative applications. And what we did a little while ago was we actually sort of opened that up and really encouraged the whole team to get involved. So since obviously the last couple of years, we've had a lot more people come in, from marketing or, sort of account management or sales, and they all get involved in these hackathons now. And we have, sort of multi-functional teams presenting. And the other thing we did was we got our clients involved. And so they come along and hear, and in fact, the last one we did was a month or so ago, which was a virtual hackathon. And we had, people dialing in for that. So, and that, although it does a lot of things, it obviously helps promote engagement. But actually what it's also done is really, out of those hackathon days that we have, there's been some really cool new products developed, which, from a company and commercial perspective have actually sort of helped, satisfy whether it's a particular client need or other issues. So it's achieved a lot of different objectives at the same time.
That's fantastic. And sorry, actually, I'm just going to stop for a second and jump and have a look in the chat box, because I don't want to ignore. I tend to get engrossed in the conversation and then ignore all the wonderful people who are with us. Hi, Wendy. So anyone who has any questions or comments or anything to share, or like to involve themselves in the conversation, would love to hear from you. So please do pop things in the chat box. I can't tell how many people are here, because everything kind of crashed around me, so I can't see the actual live on LinkedIn at the moment. But please do join in the conversation. So in terms of, we're already at 11:50. I told you this moves quickly. It goes really fast. I know. So look, I mean, in terms of I'm just going to move into the COVID conversation, because I kind of need to. I don't want to ignore that either. It's something that's been really real for all of us. And you've just talked about the virtual hackathon. How have you gone with engagement of your team during the time? I mean, you guys are obviously, a few of you or all of you, I'm not sure, are back in the office now. But, what were some of the challenges you faced, and how did you deal with them?
Yeah, so in the early days, obviously of, I think back in March. So being in Sydney, it's obviously been a lot easier, I think, than people in Melbourne. And we've got a couple of our team members in Melbourne, and obviously I've got family still there, but so I know it's been incredibly hard. But yeah, in Sydney in the early days, there were a number of people who we were sort of obviously monitoring, and as soon as it became serious, we gave the option for people to work from home, which many did. But there are quite a few people in the team who said, look, I can't work from home. So one guy whose wife is was a nurse in emergency nurse at night, and he said, being in a small studio apartment, I'd drive her mad if I'm there during the day on phone calls and whatever. So we actually gave the option for people who wanted to stay in the office, and being we just actually moved offices earlier in the year, so we had, and still have more than the, I think, requisite 4 square meters per person. But yeah, so we had a small core team who stayed in the office, and then a lot of the rest of the team stayed working from home. But we maintained communications both as a group and then as different teams, and it actually worked pretty well. So of course we did all the other things that I think many other companies did. So a virtual bring your pet to work day, and various group meetings with a glass of wine on a Friday afternoon. And but yeah, it was pretty tough. And I know that in one of your previous LinkedIn Live topics, there's been a lot of discussion about mental health, and that was something we were constantly monitoring. And there were a number of the team who were really struggling with that. So that's been something that being really mindful of, and trying to just maintain those communications with everybody, and of course individuals who might be suffering. So
yeah, it's really challenging, and I think some companies have done it really well. And the other thing is, as a leader, you're dealing with so much else at the same time as with all of that, plus business as usual, plus and I know for your business it was kind of a bit crazy there for a minute.
It was. Well, we got really busy because a lot of people needed the types of communication solutions that we offer. And so we became in those early days, we had a lot of people saying, oh, we actually need to get a solution up and running in the next 24 hours. So our team was really focused and busy during that, which I don't know, maybe in one way was a way of perhaps compartmentalizing what was going on, and just dealing with the immediate urgency of a lot of those requests. But so we were extremely busy, and still are quite busy managing different client requests and different solutions. So
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I suppose as well, making sure everybody gets a little bit of downtime where they can is important.
Yes, yeah, and in fact, right now the team are doing another major project, we actually, in fact, in Sydney, we were planning a bit of a sailing day for all the tech staff that have been working on this big project, but we'll still do that probably in December, actually. So
yeah,
I think
fantastic.
I think by then, hopefully all the restrictions have eased and everyone can go out and enjoy,
yes,
the time.
Yeah. Can't believe how exciting freedom is right now, but that's
I know, particularly in Melbourne, right?
Yeah. Now there's a few questions coming into the chat box here, so I'm going to quickly check in on a couple of those. So, hi Charlene, thank you. And so Marwa had asked, how do you handle leaders that genuinely believe that they have diversity, but in reality, what they actually have, as Rebecca just said, is a great culture full of happy mini-me's? Good question. I love how you phrase that.
That's funny. Well, there's a few things you can do, I guess. I remember in a previous organisation, actually, which was a big ASX listed company, and we set up a diversity and inclusion program, and some of the managers said, we don't need this, we're perfectly fine, we've got diverse workplaces, blah blah blah. And then we actually asked them to do the unconscious bias test, and they did that. And I think a lot of them actually it was a bit of a a light bulb moment. They said, "Oh, actually," and we've all got unconscious bias. They went through that and thought, "Oh, actually, maybe I need to be thinking this differently." But so in answer to the question, I think maybe just trying to sort of raise awareness of the fact that there's not everybody is going to be thinking like you or being the same as you. And I think being aware of what being aware of other people and what they perhaps are bringing to a role or to that company, even though they may not be exactly the same as you, is really important.
Mm-hmm. And so a really practical thing that you just raised there was doing the unconscious bias test. So that's really important. And I think even I, every time I look at it, there's something else I pick up,
Absolutely.
and it's so hard not to be unconsciously biased. And consciously biased sometimes. And then I suppose just from my perspective, Marwa, the second thing I would say is planning and strategizing on the roles you need in your business and what you need in those roles and what you need from the people doing those roles is a really good starting point, so that rather than gut feel, you're actually putting some structure and some science around the hiring for the different roles and for the different teams as well. I think that's a really good thing to look at as well. Thank you for that. Thank you for the question and for the answer. And another one here. Cheryl's just Cheryl Woods. Hi, Cheryl. She's just acknowledging. I love the vision and purpose, as it gives the team clarity. Any tips on tapping into what motivates people? Do you have any tips on that?
Gee, that's always also a hard one. I think it's just being aware of, I mean, I guess there's work that can be done around, sort of the different motivators for people, but I think it's conversation really at the end of the day. And, I guess one thing that happens, for all of us as we sort of go through these different roles and go through life, you get a really good sense of people. And I think by having the conversation with people and just really finding out about their lives and what has shaped them as people and perhaps shaped them in terms of their values, it gives you a good sense of what might be important to them. And at the end of the day, it's there's some key sort of motivators for all of us, but some people are going to be more motivated by whether it's a sense of belonging or a sense of family, whereas other people may be more motivated by money. I've never met someone in my career that's only motivated by money. Even the most hardened sort of salespeople, I think they like to be working in a culture and environment which helps support them. So I think it's just, as I said, being aware of what people value.
Yeah, fantastic. Completely agree. And money only goes so far and lasts so long, and then it comes down to so much more than that. All right, we are at 11:59, and I know we had a few sort of glitches at the beginning, so hopefully we're okay to go over a couple of minutes, but we'll try and finish up soon. And thank you to anyone who does have to leave. I appreciate you joining us. And next week, I have Nick Varikios coming on just to preempt with anyone who's got to jump off. So it's going to be a really fabulous conversation. Amit has asked during the hiring process, and he had a spell check, an autocorrect issue with the name. So, all good. I hate that when that happens. It says hi Diana, and then he's corrected it to Fiona. You got to love autocorrect. During the hiring process, what is your preferred style? Hiring like-minded versus hiring people where you can potentially learn from them. Advantages versus disadvantages.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's it's always good if you can bring in people who've got obviously the right sort of skills and experience for the role that you're recruiting for, but if they've got a different perspective and different insight, that's always really, I think, valuable. And again, as I said, I mentioned before, we've got a really good, strong, multicultural team, and it's quite surprising and really quite always sort of really, quite. For me, I reflect a lot on what different people say, whether it's sort of just in a passing conversation at the kitchen, or things they might send to me in an email, and just that having that sort of different perspective and opinion sometimes is always great to hear.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think that also comes back to some of the rest of the conversation we've been having around unconscious bias and so forth. I'm just Marwa says, is it okay to call a leader out on their unconscious bias, diplomatically, of course?
Yeah, look, I think if you can have that, if you've got that sort of communication that you can have with the leader, I always encourage feedback. One of the things I do that my team has said that I do is, if we go into a meeting, I always want to make sure that people have the opportunity to be heard. And so, I would ask for each person's opinion rather than sort of either me or somebody else dominating the conversation. And I don't know, obviously, the person's situation, but if they've got the ability to, as they say, call out the bias, I probably wouldn't do it, as they say, in a confrontational way, but perhaps a one-on-one discussion, if they have the opportunity to do that, I think would be good.
And I think if you're calling it out in context to something that maybe you've identified there is somebody or something else that's required for that role, or that sort of thing. So bringing up this stuff in context, and like you say, perhaps in more of a private setting. And I think asking permission to give feedback first is always
good.
I've got another question come in. Thank you, Marwa. Hopefully that gives you some guidance there. Happy to talk to you offline about it as well. And by the way, I think if anyone wants to connect up with Fiona, please do that on LinkedIn. So Pat Devlin is saying, what's the important thing for you what is the important thing for you when, I assume he means the most important thing for you when you build a team?
For me, it's definitely about, being able to, I've employed people and brought people into the team who may not have had, all of the sort of experience or skills that you might look for, but if they've had the willingness to learn and to embrace the role and really be part of what you want to create, that to me is so much more important than having somebody who ticks all the right boxes on paper. I think just having a team of people and individuals that you're recruiting who really sort of want to come in and help make a difference, I think is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've had conversations around this stuff with Pat, and I'm pretty sure he agrees with that sentiment. So it's I think so important, but it's something that's sometimes a bit scary to do as a leader, because you kind of, that's why a lot of the time you see people taking the safe route. It's got to be someone who's sort of been there, done that. But it's pretty incredible what I've seen leaders achieve, or what people achieve in a team when they hire the way you're describing here, and not only for functional capability. It's incredible. So there's some really great success stories that you hear about in that sense. So very cool. We are 5 minutes over, and so I'm going to throw, if I can, one last question at you. Pat's response, by the way, was he loves that. So thanks, Pat. One more question. If you could only give one piece of advice to upcoming leaders, just one thing for them to carry with them, what would that one piece of advice be?
Probably to not be afraid of change, which is probably quite sort of topical at the moment, but everything is changing more and more rapidly. And when you're in technology or most other fields right now, I think there's just an incredible amount of change. While still, I think the underlying fundamental sort of values that make us all human, I think are still constant. But yeah, the change that we all, undergo or go through, I think is something not to be afraid of. And when it all seems, sort of like there's just so many different sort of competing priorities, I think just finding a way through and getting people to help you do that. So I think stepping back and reflecting, and if it seems overwhelming, just finding that way forward, with people that you can trust.
Brilliant. That's fantastic advice. Thank you. And thank you so much for joining us today. I know how crazy busy it is right now, so I really appreciate you taking the time out for us. And I really appreciate everyone who's joined us on this call as well. It's fantastic having you all here and having you as part of the conversation. And I would love if you can share this with friends, colleagues, let people know we're here every week at 11:30. Just to remind everybody, I have Nick Varikios on next week. He is, I'm going to call him a rock star in the industry. He's a fabulous leader, and I'm really excited to be talking to him. So I'd love to see you all next week at 11:30 on Thursday. Once again, thank you. I'm going to cut to the outro now, and I look forward to seeing everybody soon. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm so grateful you managed to take time out to spend with us. I hope you got some value from the conversation. And just a reminder, I will be here every Thursday at 11:30 talking to another fabulous leader and bringing you more great morsels and value and mentoring. So please do join me. And if there's anything you would like to talk about when it comes to attracting, developing, retaining high-performing teams, please reach out. I would love to have a conversation. If you would like a transcript of the session, please remember to leave me a message or get in touch, and I'll also produce a document which will have the key takeouts from today's session, so I can share that with you too. All right, thanks again. Have a fabulous day. I will see you next time.